Up next on our show, we have Lucas Meers, who's a JU alum, class of 2012, and currently the Conservation Program Officer at the Jacksonville Zoo and Gardens. Lucas,
Yep.
thanks for coming on the show with us today.
No problem, Pat. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, let's start. Let's go a little bit back in time, and we'll kind of work up to what you're doing today.
Okay.
From what I saw, it looks like you have a pretty extensive history with the university, both as a student, rowing, on the crew team, as well as working with the university. So I guess let's start all the way at the beginning. And what brought you to JU in the first place?
So it's kind of a not much of an interesting story, but I like to think it's an interesting story. I'm from the outskirts of St. Louis, Missouri. My family used to take vacations to Florida all the time. We used to always have the game, who could see the first palm tree. No one really knew in my family about the city of Jacksonville, other than my uncle was actually stationed here in the late 80s. And I actually took my first vacation here to Jacksonville in 1988 when I was 3 months old. But I got something in the mail from JU, and I'm like, I'm going to go to Florida. I wanted to get out of the Midwest and get close to the beach. I had these grandiose visions of doing homework on the beach. That never happened. But it's something about the state of Florida just attracted me to it. Probably the beach and the exotic animals and stuff. I have a very strong passion for animals. But I kind of found myself here and then never left.
There you go. Yeah, I had a similar experience where I grew up in South Florida, so this is as far north as I wanted to go. I was like, man, we're getting gorgeous. So
the more north you go, the more southern you get. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I remember we came to St. Augustine, so knowing that it was in proximity, I was like, okay, I understand. Yeah. So awesome. So you came to university, and like I said, so you were on the crew team. And why don't you tell us a little bit about that experience and being with that team?
Yeah. So crew was kind of a last minute decision to join. They used to do this thing at orientation. They might still do it, called Dolphin Marketplace, where they have all the different clubs lined up. We did it in DCOB, and different clubs and organizations, banks. You could set up your own bank account if you're from out of state, that sort of thing. And Coach Jim Mitchell was there with the crew team, and I was there with my mom, dad, and aunt. And my aunt was like, "Oh, your grandpa, who I never met, he passed away before I was born. Your grandpa was on the rowing team in St. Louis." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. This looks pretty fun." I never did any sports in high school. I was a straight up walk-on, had no experience with rowing, but apparently I had the body type for it, tall and thin. And so I signed up, and then I started in fall of '06. And then I think I started to get a scholarship in spring of '07. But then I ultimately had to leave the team just to get a job and start paying for school. In the, when was I there? Fall of '06 to spring of '08.
Got it.
Yep.
And I know, the program has had a lot of success over many, many years. The one thing I remember about crew is they were always running. We were always in pre-season or in season. We'd always see crew just laughing.
It's nonstop. It's nonstop. You have to be really dedicated. And I think what really kind of forces you to be dedicated is the fact that you have the people in the boat relying on you. So if you don't show up to practice, you don't go on the water that morning. And so there's 8 other guys or 8 other girls that are stuck on the erg. And typically you want to be on the water. It's exciting to be on the water because you get a much better practice because you're practicing balancing the boat. Whereas if you're on the erg, the ergometer, the rowing machine, you're just stationary doing the same movement over and over again. But so you want to dedicate your life to crew. I think it was 6 or 7 practices a week. We had Sundays off, but occasionally we would do 2 practices. But I loved it. I was in the best shape of my life. Oh my God. I was in the best shape of my life. Can't say that I'm in the best shape of my life anymore, but.
Well, so I know you did a lot, again, from the looks of it, with the university, both as a student and transitioning to where you are now. So why don't you talk a little bit about the other things that you're involved in? Because it looks like you're involved in more than just, running, which is crew, and being a student.
So as a student, my major was biology and marine science. I double majored. And then because I had to start actually paying for school, I had to get a few jobs. So I was actually working at the university, multiple jobs. I was a student ambassador giving tours to prospective students. I worked as the coordinator of fitness and recreation when we used to have that position. I used to help run the fitness center. And then we used to plan these exciting trips and activities for students to do at a discounted rate. I used to work in the student life office. So anyone that actually got in trouble or written up on campus, I served them their letter to report to the dean, which was pretty interesting. And then I held a few other positions at the university. And then once graduation kind of came around, I had no jobs lined up. So I was talking to a few of the administrators on any job openings. And there was one in admissions and then one in development or alumni relations. And then I ended up going that route. So I worked in the development office, specifically alumni relations, for I think 1 year and 10 months, helping the university raise some money. And then when I decided that higher education administration wasn't necessarily for me, I wanted to get back to my animal passion. And then a development or fundraising position opened up at the zoo. And I made some calls, applied, and got the job. And so I transitioned over there and did some fundraising for the zoo. And then during that position, I actually got an opportunity to do some sea turtle research for 3 months in Costa Rica. And that's what really solidified my passion for conservation. The zoo let me take a leave of absence for that time. And then I came back, still had my job, which was really exciting. And then when I needed to move up or do something different, I think I hit my capacity in that current position. It was an entry-level position in development. Then I moved over to public relations and event planning at the zoo, where I started doing a lot of the zoo's conservation events. And then eventually moved over to conservation. I actually helped draft and write the job description for the position right now as conservation program officer. And I've been in this position for, I think, going on 4 years.
Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit about it. It's always great to hear when someone takes not only their passion, but also their education and their degree and can actually turn that into a job.
Yes, exactly.
It doesn't always happen. I did the same thing. I started with business administration, went marketing, and now it's what I do. So with conservation, let's talk about that, because I know there's two different sides of I guess, your responsibility there with the zoo. So let's start with the conservation program. Just tell me a little bit about what your responsibilities are and what you do there.
Yeah, definitely. So zoos nowadays, they've shifted to what they were previously. Before, like decades ago, they were menageries. What zoo could have the coolest animals? Now they're really focusing on protecting wildlife in wild places. So we want to make sure that the animals that we're caring for in our facility, that their cousins in the wild are being protected. So that's kind of what I help do, is develop our program and strategy around that. And that can consist of taking a portion of our ticket sales. So every time you visit the zoo or purchase a membership, a portion of that actually goes to our wildlife conservation budget, which goes to protect animals and plants around the world. We also send a lot of our zoo staff out into the field to use some of their expertise to help protect these animals and plants. And then basically all around conservation messaging, actionable items that our guests can take when they visit the zoo, actions that they can take to actually protect animals and plants in the wild themselves. And so it's kind of developing an entire program around the idea of action-oriented items to help overall protect the animals and plants around the world that we love so much.
Got it. So yeah, so I've seen, we took the kids out there a couple months ago, pre-COVID, but the signage and some of the videos and things like that, it seems like there's a big push, not, hey, isn't this cool, but here's what you can do to make
Here's what you can do to help. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So let's talk about it, and I'm going to butcher, is it Okapi?
Yes, you said it right.
All right.
You said it right. The Okapi Conservation Project. So a lot of people say Okapi, which I know what they're talking about. It's like tomato type thing. But as the Okapi Conservation Project, we say Okapi, spelled Okapi. We have one Okapi at the zoo. His name is Camacho. He's a male. And what that program does, it was founded in 1987. So the president, my boss, actually founded the project the year I was born. I like to give him a lot of crap about that. But so we work in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We have a staff of about 45 people that work a lot with the local communities to preserve the rainforest habitat of the Okapi. So a lot of what conservation is, it's very human-based. It's not all about protecting the animals and plants in the wild, because if left alone, they would do just fine. Mother Nature would balance itself. But it's really the people that are causing a lot of the issues, not necessarily purposefully, but particularly in a lot of these poorer areas of the world. They are just struggling to survive, find food, find fire, or sources of firewood, that sort of thing. And so what we do is we work with them to make sure that their basic needs are met. It's very human oriented. So ensuring that their basic needs are met, then they can actually focus on protecting the rainforest around them, which in turn preserves the habitat for the Okapi.
Oh, that's fantastic. So is there anything going on right now where, current students are coming over for internships, or, is there kind of that hands-on experience that current students can have with the Zoo and Gardens?
Yeah, with the zoo, definitely. Okapi Conservation Project, it's a little bit more difficult because Democratic Republic of Congo is not the safest place to go, and we don't encourage people to visit there at the moment. But for the zoo, definitely, we have plenty of internships, and that's actually the best way to go about if you want to get into the zoo field or conservation field, is experience. Because so often when you get to your senior year and you're looking for jobs in conservation, or particularly zoos, they typically require 2 years of experience in an AZA accredited facility. AZA is the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. It's the accrediting body for a lot of the bigger zoos that you typically know, and they have the highest standards of animal care and conservation for different facilities. You have to have minimum requirements to actually be AZA accredited. So the best way to get that experience, if you're looking for a job in the field, is to do internships or volunteer. And we have volunteer and internship opportunities in every department, from finance to marketing to event planning to animal care to even in my department, conservation. I take an intern each semester to get some experience to provide some experience in conservation. So there's plenty of those opportunities out there. Although I think right now, because of COVID stuff going on, we aren't taking any interns, but that should change hopefully in the near future.
Great. Excellent. Lucas, I appreciate you stopping by and telling us a little bit about what you're doing and your time at the university.
Oh, no problem. No problem. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.